The manila envelope sat unopened on my kitchen counter for 3 days. I kept walking past it, pretending it didn't exist, just like I'd spent years pretending my great-aunt Mabel's favoritism toward me didn't exist. Now she was gone, and this envelope was all that remained of our secret Sunday afternoon tea parties. I'm Sophia, and I've always been the responsible one, the reliable one, the boring one, according to my sister Taya. But Aunt Mabel saw something different in me, something I'm only now beginning to understand. "Just open it already," Amelia's voice crackled through my phone speaker. "You're driving me crazy with this waiting game." I know. I paced around my tiny apartment, phone in hand. It's just, what if it's nothing? What if it's just old photos or recipe cards? Then you'll have recipe cards, but what if it's not nothing? What if it's everything? I grabbed the envelope and dropped onto my couch. "Fine, I'm opening it. Stay on the line. Obviously." The paper ripped easily under my fingers. Inside, I found a letter and... I gasped. "What? Sophia, what is it?" It's a check. "Amelia, it's for $50,000. The silence on the other end lasted 3 seconds before Amelia screamed, "Holy shit!" My hands shook as I read Aunt Mabel's letter. Her elegant handwriting filled the page with memories of our conversations about dreams and destinations, about the places we'd both longed to see. She remembered, I whispered. Every single thing I told her about wanting to travel, about Mom and Dad's dream trip they could never afford. The doorbell rang, making me jump. "Hold on, someone's here." I opened the door to find my mother, Daphne, holding a casserole dish. "Surprise, I brought dinner." "Mom!" I quickly stuffed the envelope under a throw pillow. "I wasn't expecting you." Can't a mother check on her daughter? She bustled into my kitchen, all flowing scarves and jangling bracelets. "You've been so quiet since the funeral." I followed her, watching as she pulled plates from my cabinets. "I'm fine, really. Just processing." "Well, process while you eat. Oh, and your father and I were thinking about having a family dinner this weekend. Taya has some exciting news." Of course she does. Taya always has exciting news. "Sure, Mom. I'll be there." After dinner, I called Amelia back. "I think I know what I want to do with the money. Please tell me you're not giving it to Taya's latest business venture." "No." I pulled up a travel website on my laptop. "I'm going to give Mom and Dad their dream trip, 3 months, around the world. Everything they've ever talked about seeing." "Wow, that's actually amazing. But what about you?" I smiled, remembering all those afternoons with Aunt Mabel, plotting imaginary adventures over Earl Grey tea. "I'll plan it all. Make it perfect. They deserve this." Later that night, I stopped by my parents' house to pick up some old photos Aunt Mabel had left there. As I approached the front door, I heard voices through the open window. "But Taya really needs this support right now," Mom was saying. "We can't just abandon her new project." I know. Dad's voice was tired. "But we have to think about Sophia too. She's been so good about everything. Sophia will understand. She always does." I froze on the porch, my hand halfway to the doorbell. "Besides?" Taya's voice drifted out, bright and confident. "My wellness center idea is guaranteed to make money. Once it takes off, I can pay everyone back." Just like the coffee shop was guaranteed, and the vintage clothing store, and the food truck. "Of course you will, sweetie." Mom's voice dripped with pride. "We believe in you." I backed away from the door, my chest tight. In my car, I pulled out my phone and opened my travel planning document. My finger hovered over the delete button, but instead I started typing. Day 1, Tokyo, cherry blossoms in spring. Day 15, Bangkok street food tours. Day 30, swimming with dolphins in Australia. Aunt Mabel's voice echoed in my head. "Sometimes the best revenge is living well, my dear." I drove home with a strange lightness in my chest. Tomorrow I would present my parents with the trip of their dreams. And then, well, we'd see what happened next. But first, I needed to make a stop at the travel clinic for some vaccinations, just in case. I spent 3 hours arranging everything perfectly on my parents' dining room table. Detailed itineraries bound in leather folders, first-class plane tickets, hotel reservations at places they'd only dreamed about, and a world map marked with colourful pins showing their route. Sophia, honey, what's all this? Mom walked in, followed by Dad and Tyre. They'd just returned from touring potential locations for Tyre's wellness centre. Sit down, everyone. I could barely contain my excitement. I have something to show you. Can it wait? Tyre flopped onto a chair, scrolling through her phone. I need to tell everyone about the amazing space I found. Just 5 minutes, please? I handed Mom and Dad each a folder. Open them. Mom's eyes widened as she flipped through the pages. Paris, Rome, Bangkok. She looked up at me. What is this? Remember all those times we sat around this table planning your dream trip? My voice quivered. The one you never took because of college tuitions and mortgage payments. Dad's hands trembled as he held up the plane tickets. Sophia, these are first class. Aunt Mabel left me some money. I reached across the table and grabbed their hands. And I want you to have this. 3 months, all expenses paid, everywhere you've ever wanted to go. Oh my God, Mom whispered, tears forming in her eyes. This is incredible. The timing couldn't be worse, Tyre interrupted, finally looking up from her phone. Mom and Dad promised to help me with the wellness centre. I need them here. But this is... Dad started. Daddy, I already put down the deposit. The contractor starts next week. I can't do this without you both. I watched Mom's face change, that familiar shift I'd seen 1,000 times before. Sweetie, maybe we could postpone the centre for a few months. No. Tyre slammed her hand on the table. This is my chance to finally prove myself. After everything that happened with the food truck, I need this to work. You promised. The silence that followed felt like a physical weight. I knew what was coming before Mom even opened her mouth. Sophia. She reached for my hand. You understand, don't you? Tyre needs us right now. Need you? My voice came out sharper than intended. She needs your money. Again. That's not fair, Dad protested weakly. Isn't it? I stood up, gathering the folders. How much did the food truck cost you? The vintage store, the coffee shop? Those were investments, Tyre snapped. This is different. Right. Just like this trip is different. This isn't about money, it's about the one thing you've both wanted your entire lives. Sophia. Mum's voice took on that placating tone I hated. We appreciate the gesture, really. But family has to come first. I am family. The words exploded out of me. Or have you forgotten that while funding Tyre's endless parade of failed dreams? The room fell silent. Even Tyre looked shocked. I'll cancel the tickets, I said quietly, shoving everything into my bag. Wouldn't want to interfere with another guaranteed success story. I drove home in a daze, barely registering the traffic lights. In my kitchen, I pulled out my phone and started recording. Hey, Mom, Dad. By the time you see this, I'll be gone. I reached for the flour, sugar, and cocoa powder. Aunt Mabel always said baking helped clear the mind. Remember when I was 10 and you promised to take me to Disneyland? We never went because Tyre needed dance lessons. I cracked eggs with more force than necessary. Remember my college graduation? You missed it because Tyre's coffee shop was having its grand opening, the one that closed 3 months later. The cake batter came together smoothly despite my shaking hands. Well, guess what? Aunt Mabel didn't just leave me money, she left me permission to put myself first. I poured the batter into a pan. So while you're helping Tyre with her latest guaranteed failure, I'll be living our dream. Your dream. My dream. And this time, I won't let anyone take it away from me. The oven timer dinged. I pulled out a perfect chocolate cake, Aunt Mabel's recipe. I'll send postcards, maybe even bring you back some souvenirs. But right now, I'm going to eat this entire cake by myself and book a one-way ticket to Tokyo. I ended the recording and cut myself a huge slice. Tomorrow I'd start packing. Tomorrow I'd call the travel clinic and confirm my appointments. Tomorrow I'd begin planning my solo adventure. But tonight? Tonight was for chocolate cake and the sweet, sweet taste of rebellion. You're really doing this? Amelia helped me zip up my overflowing suitcase. Like, actually getting on a plane in 3 hours. Watch me. I checked my passport for the 100th time. Did you know my phone's been blowing up since yesterday? 37 missed calls from Mum, 23 from Dad, and about 1 million texts from Tyre. Have you read any of them? I shook my head, tossing my phone onto the bed. Don't need to, it's all, how could you be so selfish and think about your sister, and we need to talk about this as a family. Speaking of family, Amelia hesitated. When are you sending the video? I pulled up the recording on my laptop. Right before I board. Maximum dramatic effect. I grabbed my carry-on bag. Ready? The drive to the airport felt surreal. Every traffic light seemed to ask if I was sure, if I really wanted to do this. My answer remained the same. Absolutely. Holy shit, Amelia whispered as we pulled up to the departures terminal. That's your parents' car. Sure enough, there was Dad's silver Volvo, with Mom pacing nearby and Tyre sitting on the hood, arms crossed. How did they know? I gripped the steering wheel. Probably called the airlines. Amelia squeezed my arm. Want me to create a distraction? I could fake a medical emergency. I laughed despite myself. No need, I'm done running from confrontations. We parked 3 spaces down. As I stepped out, Mom rushed over. Sophia, stop this nonsense right now. She reached for my suitcase. We can talk about this at home. I pulled the handle away. There's nothing to talk about. My flight leaves in 2 hours. You're being ridiculous, Tyre called from her perch on the car. All this drama over a stupid trip. No. I wheeled my suitcase toward the terminal entrance. All this drama over 28 years of being second best. Dad stepped in front of me. Princess, please, your mother and I love you both equally. Really? I pulled out my phone. Let's play a game called Count the Times. Count the times you missed my events for Tyres. Count the times you emptied your savings for her ideas. Count the times you said Sophia will understand instead of Tyre needs to grow up. That's not fair, Mom protested. Life's not fair. But you know what is? First-class tickets to Tokyo. I checked my watch. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a plane to catch. If you get on that plane, Tyre announced dramatically, don't expect us to be here when you get back. I turned to face her. Funny. I was about to say the same thing. Amelia, who'd been quietly filming everything on her phone, stepped forward. Security's right there, guys. Make this easier on everyone and let her go. Mum started crying. Dad looked lost, and Tyre stormed off toward their car. I hugged Amelia tight. Send me updates, she whispered, and that video is going to be epic. Inside the terminal, I checked my bags and made it through security in record time. At my gate, I found a quiet corner and pulled out my laptop. The video was ready to send, but I opened it for one final edit. P.S., I added at the end, I just walked past you all at the airport. Did you notice I wasn't crying? That's because for the first time in my life, I'm choosing me, and it feels amazing. I hit send, then forwarded it to Amelia for backup. As I watched the message sent confirmation appear, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. How could you embarrass us like this in public? I typed back, how could you embarrass me for 28 years in private? Then I turned off my phone, ordered an overpriced airport coffee, and pulled out my travel journal. Another gift from Aunt Mabel. On the first page, she'd written, "The world is wide, and you are strong. Go find yourself, my brave girl." Now boarding first-class passengers for Flight 847 to Tokyo, the announcer called. I gathered my things, handed over my boarding pass, and walked down the jet bridge without looking back. As I settled into my seat, I noticed my hands weren't shaking anymore. The flight attendant appeared with a glass of champagne. First time to Japan? First time anywhere. I accepted the glass. First time being free, she smiled knowingly. In that case, welcome aboard. To new beginnings. I raised my glass to the window, toasting my reflection and the wide blue sky beyond. To new beginnings. I whispered, and to Aunt Mabel, who knew exactly what she was doing. The engines roared to life, and with them so did I. Tokyo hit me like a tidal wave of neon and noise. Standing outside Shibuya Station, I watched the famous crossing fill and empty with waves of people, each cycle perfectly timed to the traffic lights. My exhausted brain tried to process the signs, the sounds, the smells of yakitori from nearby food stalls. First time in Japan? I turned to find a tall man with a well-worn backpack and an easy smile. He'd been on my flight, a few rows behind me in first class. That obvious, huh? You have that deer in the headlights look we all get our first time here. He extended his hand. I'm Bryson, professional wanderer, amateur photographer, and unofficial guide for lost souls at Shibuya Crossing. Sophia, I shook his hand. And I'm definitely lost. My hotel's supposed to be around here somewhere. Let me guess. The Cerulean? I'm headed that way myself. Mind if I walk with you? As we navigated the crowded streets, Bryson pointed out hidden gems, a tiny ramen shop, a vintage record store, a vending machine that sold hot coffee in cans. So, he said as we waited at a crosswalk, what brings you to Tokyo, business or pleasure? Revenge, actually. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Instead of looking shocked, Bryson laughed. Best reason I've heard all day. Want to talk about it over ramen? That shop we passed makes the best tonkotsu in the city. An hour later, sitting at a cramped counter with steam rising from our bowls, I found myself telling him everything. Your aunt sounds like she was quite a woman, he said, expertly wielding his chopsticks. She was. I just wish. I stirred my noodles. I wish I'd had her courage sooner. Hey! Bryson put down his chopsticks. You're here now, aren't you? That takes guts. Or spite. Sometimes spite is just courage wearing a disguise. He pulled out his phone. Look at these. He showed me photos from his travels. Sunrise at Machu Picchu, dancing at Carnival in Rio, camping under the northern lights. Each of these places taught me something about myself. Tokyo taught me that I'm stronger than I thought. Paris taught me to slow down. India taught me that family isn't always blood. What brought you here the first time? A broken engagement and a maxed-out credit card. He grinned. Best-worst decision I ever made. After dinner, we walked back toward the hotel. The city had transformed in the darkness, glowing with possibility. Check your phone yet? Bryson asked. Not since I landed. I pulled it from my bag and turned it on. Immediately, notifications flooded the screen. Wow, Bryson peered over my shoulder. Someone's popular. Not popular, just... I scrolled through the messages. Yep, exactly what I expected. Mom's guilt-tripping, Dad's disappointed, and Taya's, oh, this is rich. She's demanding I come home because her wellness center investors backed out. And how does that make you feel? I looked up at the Tokyo Tower glowing orange against the night sky. Free. Good answer. Bryson pulled out a business card. Listen, I'm meeting some fellow travelers tomorrow for a street food tour. Want to join? Much better than sitting in your hotel room reading angry texts. I took the card. I don't know. First rule of solo travel. Say yes to everything that doesn't involve organ harvesting. That made me laugh. Is that an actual rule? It is now. He started walking backward toward the hotel entrance. Meet in the lobby at 10 if you're interested. Bring your appetite and your camera. In my room, I finally opened Amelia's messages. Video received epic response on family group chat. Taya had meltdown. Mom called me crying. Dad actually said, maybe we messed up. Progress, I sent back. Just had ramen with a stranger. Said yes to street food tour tomorrow. Who am I? Her response was immediate. You're Sophia 2.0 and I'm here for it. P.S. Is stranger hot? I looked at Bryson's card, smiling. Not the point, but yes. Before bed, I opened my travel journal and wrote, Dear Aunt Mabel, Day 1. I ate the best ramen of my life, got lost in the best city in the world, and learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say yes to a stranger's kindness. Also, I think I finally understand why you left everything behind to travel when you were my age. Some forms of freedom can only be found far from home. My phone buzzed with another message from Tyre. Everything's falling apart, and it's all your fault. I turned off my phone, opened my window to let in the city sounds, and for the first time in years, fell asleep without worrying about anyone else's problems but my own. 2 weeks into my Tokyo adventure, I sat cross-legged on my hotel room floor, surrounded by shopping bags and souvenirs, trying to figure out how to fit everything into my suitcase. My phone buzzed with Amelia's FaceTime call. "Show me everything," she demanded before I could even say hello. I panned the camera around. "I might need to buy another suitcase. Is that a cat robot? And what's that blue thing?" "The robot's for you. The blue thing is—" A knock at the door interrupted us. "Hold on," I told Amelia, opening the door to find Bryson holding 2 coffee cans. "Ready for your last day in Tokyo?" He tossed me one of the cans. "Oh, sorry, didn't know you were on a call." "Is that hot, stranger?" Amelia's voice rang out. "Turn the camera back around." I felt my face flush. "Amelia Bryson. Bryson. My very subtle best friend, Amelia." "Nice to meet you," Bryson waved at the phone. "Thanks for letting her run away to Japan." Speaking of running away, Amelia's tone turned serious. "Sophia, check your email. Your mum sent something to the whole family, including me, weirdly." I pulled up my email while Bryson helped gather my scattered purchases. The subject line read, "Family emergency. Sophia, please come home." "Your sister's wellness centre fell through," Amelia explained before I could open it. "Your parents took out a second mortgage to fund it, and now they're in trouble." Bryson stopped, folding a t-shirt. "You okay?" I opened the email. Mum's words jumped out at me. "Desperate times. Family needs to stick together. Your father's health. Tyre's depression. Please come home." "They're guilt-tripping you," Amelia said. "Don't fall for it." "Sophia." Bryson sat beside me. "Whatever you decide, Bangkok will still be there." I looked at my packed bags, at the ticket to Bangkok on my phone, at the half-drunk coffee in my hand. "I need to make a call." Bryson squeezed my shoulder and left quietly. I propped my phone up and dialed my parents' number on speaker so Amelia could hear. Mom answered on the first ring. "Sophia." "Oh, thank God." "Hi, Mom. I got your email." "Then you're coming home?" Hope filled her voice. "No." The word came out stronger than I expected. "I'm not. But your father's blood pressure is fine. I called his doctor yesterday. Regular checkup. Everything normal." Silence on the other end. "And Tyre's depression? Let me guess. Started right after her investors backed out?" "You don't understand," Mom began. "Actually, I do. For the first time, I really do. You took out a second mortgage without telling me, didn't you? Even after what happened with the food truck and the vintage store? We believed in her dream. No, you enabled her nightmare, and now you want me to come home and what? Hand over Aunt Mabel's money to fix everything? She's your sister, and I'm your daughter, the one who's been cleaning up everyone's messes since I was 12. But not anymore." I heard Dad in the background. "Let me talk to her." "Sophia," his voice came through clearer. "Princess, we need you." "No, Dad. You need my money. There's a difference." I took a deep breath. "I love you both, but I'm boarding a plane to Bangkok tomorrow. I'll send postcards." I hung up before they could respond. Amelia wiped tears from her eyes. "That was beautiful. And terrifying. Are you okay?" "Actually, yeah." I stood up, suddenly energized. "I need to finish packing. Call you later." After ending the call, I opened my laptop and booked a food photography workshop in Bangkok. Then I texted Bryson, "Ready for that farewell dinner you promised. Also, teach me how to say no in Thai." His response came quickly. "My, and I know just the place. Meet you in lobby in 10. That night, over plates of yakitori and glasses of sake, Bryson showed me more travel photos on his camera. "See this one?" He pointed to a sunset shot in Greece. "Took this right after I told my ex-fiancé to stop calling. Some moments just feel like turning points, you know." "Like telling your parents you won't bail them out anymore?" "Exactly." He raised his glass. "To turning points." "To turning points," I echoed, then added, And to Aunt Mabel, who somehow knew I'd need this. Back in my room, I opened my journal. Dear Aunt Mabel, Day 14. Today I learned that sometimes the bravest word in any language is no. Tomorrow I leave for Bangkok, and for the first time in my life, I'm not worried about what I'm leaving behind, only excited about what's ahead. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyre. Hope you're happy with yourself. I typed back, I am, finally. Then I turned off my phone and went to sleep, dreaming of Thai street food and endless possibilities. Bangkok's heat hit like a physical wall as I stepped out of the air-conditioned airport. Bryson had flown ahead 2 days earlier, promising to show me the real Bangkok, not just the tourist traps. There's my favourite runaway. He appeared through the crowd, looking perfectly at home in the chaos. Ready for your first Thai adventure? As long as it involves food and air conditioning in that order. The taxi ride into the city became a crash course in Thai culture, with Bryson pointing out temples and street markets between stories of his previous visits. Your food photography workshop starts tomorrow, he said as we pulled up to my hotel. But tonight, I'm taking you to meet some people you need to know. People I need to know. Trust me. After checking in and a quick shower, I followed Bryson through winding alleys until we reached a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. A group of people waved from a large table. Everyone, Bryson announced, meet Sophia, the newest member of our nomad family. The introductions flew by. Maria from Brazil, who left her corporate job to teach yoga around the world. Jack from Australia, running his tech company remotely while traveling. Sarah from Canada, a travel blogger who hadn't been home in 3 years. So, Maria leaned forward, Bryson tells us you're on a revenge trip? I prefer to call it a self-discovery journey now, I laughed, accepting a glass of local beer. Aren't they all? Sarah pulled out her phone. Look at this photo from my first week away. I was crying in a hostel in Amsterdam because my mum wouldn't stop calling. What changed? I asked. I did. She swiped to a more recent photo of herself swimming with whale sharks. Somewhere between Amsterdam and Indonesia, I stopped feeling guilty for choosing myself. My phone buzzed. Another email from Mom. Your father's really upset. Please just call us. Jack noticed my expression. Family stuff? They're trying everything to get me to come home. I showed them the email. Guilt, manipulation, health scares. Delete it, Maria said firmly. Right now. But trust me, delete it. Then give me your phone. I did as she said. Maria took my phone and dropped it into her massive purse. You get this back tomorrow after your workshop. Tonight you're going to learn how to live in the moment. The night became a blur of street food tours, night markets and laughter. These people who'd known me for hours somehow felt more like family than my actual family had in years. Your sister's wellness centre, Jack said as we devoured mango sticky rice. Classic narcissist move. My brother pulled similar stunts for years. How did you handle it? Started saying no. He didn't speak to me for a year. Jack shrugged. Best year of my life. Around midnight, Sarah grabbed my arm. Come with me. There's something you need to see. She led the group to a tiny temple still open, with butter lamps flickering in the darkness. Buddhist tradition says you can let go of your past here, she explained, handing me a lamp. Light it, make a wish, leave your guilt behind. I stared at the small flame. Is it really that simple? No, Bryson appeared beside me. But it's a start. As I placed my lamp among the others, my hands steady and sure, Sarah took a photo. For your new beginning, she said, showing me the image. In it, I was smiling, the lamplight making everything glow gold. Back at my hotel, Bryson lingered at the entrance. Early start tomorrow. Your workshop's at 8. Thank you, I said, for tonight, for everything. Thank me by sending a postcard from your next destination. He grinned. Where are you thinking? Vietnam, maybe? Sarah mentioned something about a cooking class in Hanoi. Good choice. The PHO will change your life. In my room, I found a package waiting. A leather-bound photo album with a note from Maria. For your new memories. The old ones can stay where they belong, in the past. I opened my journal. Dear Aunt Mabel, 1 month into my journey, and I finally understand what you meant about finding your tribe. Tonight, I met people who measured success not by what they owned or owed, but by how freely they lived. P.S. I think you'd love Sarah. She has your way of turning strangers into family. Before sleep, I remembered my phone was still in Maria's purse. Strangely, I didn't miss it. Tomorrow I'd learn to capture Bangkok's flavors through a lens. Tomorrow I'd plan my trip to Vietnam. Tomorrow I'd get my phone back and probably find dozens of missed calls. But tonight I fell asleep to the sounds of the city, feeling more at home than I ever had in my actual home. Finally understanding that family isn't always who you're born to. Sometimes it's who you find along the way. You have got to be kidding me. I stared at the elderly woman across the cafe table in Hanoi. You knew Aunt Mabel. Margaret, my aunt's old college friend, stirred her Vietnamese coffee with precise movements. Knew her? Darling, I was with her the day she decided to leave everything behind. I'd found Margaret through a series of coincidences, a comment on my travel blog, an exchanged email, and suddenly I was sitting in her expat hideaway in Hanoi's old quarter. Tell me everything. I leaned forward, my own coffee forgotten. It was 1975. Your aunt had just received a promotion at the bank, and everyone expected her to settle down, marry that boring accountant who'd been pursuing her. Margaret's eyes twinkled. Instead, she sold her car, emptied her accounts, and bought a one-way ticket to Asia. Just like that. Just like that. Your grandmother was furious, called it a betrayal of family obligations. She paused. Sound familiar? My phone buzzed. Another message from Mom. Tyre's moving back home. We're selling the house. Please come help us sort through everything. I showed Margaret the message. Ah, she nodded. History repeats itself. You know, your aunt used to get similar messages. Your sister needs you. The family business is struggling. How could you be so selfish? What did she do? She lived, gloriously, unapologetically lived. Margaret pulled out an old photo album. Look. The photos showed a younger Aunt Mabel, riding elephants in Thailand, teaching English in Japan, dancing at festivals in India. But here's what you really need to see. Margaret flipped to the last page. A letter fell out, dated just months before Aunt Mabel's death. Dear Margaret, I read aloud. I'm leaving my travel money to Sophia. She reminds me so much of us at that age, trapped by family expectations, dying to break free. Tell her, if you ever meet her, that the inheritance isn't just money. It's permission. Permission to choose herself first like we did. My hands shook. She planned this? Of course she did. Mabel never did anything without a purpose. Margaret reached across the table. She saw herself in you, saw how your family treated you. She wanted to give you what her escape gave her, a chance to become yourself. My phone buzzed again. Dad this time. Princess, we need you. Family has to stick together. What would Aunt Mabel say right now? I asked. Margaret laughed. She'd say, Darling, the only thing family has to do is let each other grow. She stood up. Come on, I want to show you something. We walked through Hanoi's bustling streets to a small Buddhist temple, different from the tourist spots but reminiscent of the one in Bangkok. Mabel and I made a pact here, Margaret said, to never let guilt drag us back to lives that were too small for us. Your turn. To make a pact? To decide. Right here, right now. Are you living your life or theirs? I thought about Tyre moving home, about the house being sold, about all the times I'd cleaned up everyone else's messes. Then I thought about Tokyo nights with Bryson, Bangkok rooftops with my new friends, and this moment standing in a peaceful temple with my aunt's co-conspirator. Mine, I said firmly. I'm living mine. Good girl. Margaret hugged me. Now, about that cooking class you mentioned wanting to take, that evening in my hotel room I wrote 3 emails. To Mom and Dad. I love you, but I won't be coming home. Sell the house, help Tyre. But do it without me this time. I'm exactly where I need to be. To Tyre. I hope you find your path. Really. But it has to be your path, not one paved with our parents' sacrifices. To Amelia. You'll never believe who I just met. Aunt Mabel had a partner in crime, and she's just as amazing as you'd expect. P.S. Book a ticket to Vietnam. There's someone you need to meet. My phone rang. Bryson's weekly check-in from Cambodia. How's Hanoi treating you? He asked. Better than home ever did. I looked out at the city lights. Hey, what do you know about Nepal? Funny you should ask. I'm heading there next week. Want company? I thought about Aunt Mabel's photos, about Margaret's stories, about permission to choose myself. Yes, I said. But first, I need to learn how to make proper pho. Margaret knows a place. Margaret? It's a long story, involving my aunt, a rebellion in 1975, and apparently a very boring accountant who got left behind. Bryson laughed. Sounds like my kind of story. Mine too, I said, watching the sunset paint Hanoi in gold. Finally, mine too. The sunrise over the Himalayas painted the mountains gold as I adjusted my camera settings. After 6 countries and countless adventures, Nepal felt different, special, like an ending, or maybe a beginning. Perfect light, Bryson said, setting up his own tripod beside me. Ready for your last shoot? Not my last, just my last as a student. I checked the composition. After this, I'm officially a professional travel photographer. Speaking of which, he handed me an envelope. Sarah asked me to give you this. Inside was a contract offering me a position as a photographer for her travel blog network. Real money, real assignments, real freedom. My phone buzzed. Amelia's daily check-in. Did you open it yet? Sarah told me about the offer. Just did. It's actually happening. Of course it is. You're good at this, like really good. She paused. Oh, and your mom called me again. What did she want this time? To know if you got the wedding invitation. I had. Taya was getting married to some investor she'd met at a yoga retreat. The invitation arrived at Margaret's address in Hanoi, where I'd been receiving my mail. Are you going? Amelia asked. Haven't decided. I watched the sun climb higher. Bryson, what do you think? He lowered his camera. I think you should do whatever feels right, not what feels expected. Very zen of you, I laughed. Must be all this mountain air. Speaking of mountain air, Amelia cut in, when do I get to meet this guy properly? Video calls don't count. Soon, Bryson called toward the phone. If she accepts Sarah's offer, we'll all be in Barcelona next month. After ending the call, I sat on a rock overlooking the valley, flipping through my now full travel journal. The pages burst with ticket stubs, restaurant receipts, and photographs. Physical proof of my transformation. Mail came to the hotel, Bryson said, handing me a thick envelope. From your parents. Inside was a letter and a cheque, my share from selling the house. The letter was in Dad's handwriting. Dear Sophia, your mother wanted me to guilt you again, but I'm done with that. Seeing your travel photos online, reading your stories, you remind me of someone I used to know. A young man who wanted to explore the world but chose the safe path instead. I don't want that for you. We sold the house. Taya's wedding is in 3 months. Come if you want, don't if you don't. Either way, we're proud of you. Finally proud of you being you, not you taking care of everyone else. Love, Dad. P.S. Your Aunt Mabel once told me I was too afraid to live. She was right. You're braver than I ever was. You okay? Bryson asked, noticing my tears. Yeah, I folded the letter. I think I'm going to the wedding. Want company? I looked at him, really looked at him. 6 months of shared adventures, shared meals, shared dreams had turned him from a stranger into something else entirely. Yes, I said, but not as my travel buddy. He smiled, understanding perfectly. About time. The sun had fully risen now, illuminating the valley below. My phone buzzed with a message from Margaret. Mabel would be proud. So am I. P.S. That boy reminds me of someone I met in Thailand in '76. But that's a story for another time. I pulled out my journal one last time. Dear Aunt Mabel, the money's gone now. Spent on planes and trains and tuk-tuks, on cooking classes and camera lenses, on finding myself in places I never knew existed. But what remains is worth more than any inheritance. Courage, freedom, love. Not the kind that chains you down, but the kind that helps you fly. I'm going to Tyre's wedding. Not because I have to, but because I want to. I'm going to show them the woman I've become. A photographer, a traveller, a person who finally knows her own worth. And then I'm going to Barcelona, to start my new job, to continue this beautiful journey you helped me begin. Thank you for the permission to choose myself. I'll never stop choosing myself. Ready to head back? Bryson asked, packing up his gear. We've got that meeting with the monastery guide at noon. Almost. I took one last photo. Not of the mountains, but of my open journal next to my plane tickets to Barcelona. Just documenting the moment I realised something. What's that? The best revenge isn't living well. It's living truthfully. I stood up, shouldering my camera bag. Also, you're totally coming to this wedding as my date. Wouldn't miss it. He took my hand as we started down the trail. Think your sister will freak out when she realises her wedding photos might end up in an international travel blog? Probably. I squeezed his hand. But that's not why we're going. No? We're going because I'm finally ready to go home, not to stay, but to show them I never needed saving. I just needed to save myself. The morning sun warmed our backs as we descended, two wanderers planning our next adventure, while behind us the Himalayas stood witness to a story that had only just begun. Just begun. Just begun. Just begun. Just begun.